Marketer of the Day, number 487. Internet Legal Issues, Mistakes, and Strategies with SoCal Internet Lawyer Richard Chapo. Hey everyone, we're so glad that you're listening to us. We're talking right now with Richard Chapo, and Richard is a San Diego attorney, and he specializes in advising small and large online businesses on legal requirements when operating in or selling to the U.S. market. And Richard's goal is to help clients avoid legal issues before they happen by being proactive when addressing legal threats. And he's been practicing for 25 plus years, so we're going to have lots of fun things to talk about. How are things today, Richard?
They're good. How about yourself?
Can't complain, better than ever. So yeah, tell me about yourself. You're a lawyer, right?
I am. I've been practicing since the very late 1980s, so I'm an old codger of sorts, but I've been working in the internet law field since right about 2000, pretty close to when it started to take off as a commercial medium, and I've been practicing since then.
Well, super cool, and I definitely I can relate to what we heard about in your bio in wanting to get or to solve problems before they happen, but then at the same time it's sort of boring, right? It's like the legal equivalent of I got to brush my teeth to avoid cavities. It's like, well, I don't want to have the cavity and have to fix it, but then also brushing my teeth is sort of boring. So I mean, is there an easy way around that? Is there an easy way to make sure that we're covered legally, but also kind of have fun doing it too? Is that possible?
It can be. I think one of the areas where people get a little crazed with the legal side is, obviously you don't want to do it. I hate going to the dentist. I'll fully admit it. A grown adult, and I still hate it. And so I try to put it off. I think with, the legal situation, it's kind of the same thing. Every year you should have at least one appointment with your attorney. Find a local attorney that you like, go through Yelp, look at reviews and what have you, and then talk to them about developments in your business. And then if they do have any kind of legal issues that they raise, look at those also as potential unique selling position. I'll give you an example. With marketing online, the FTC is hot and bothered about whether people are making the proper disclosures. So if you're getting paid for a review or native advertising or any of that kind of thing, you're supposed to be disclosing that. And most people don't want to do that. And, they try to hide it and make it as small as possible in the print and what have you. Instead, a better approach is to look at it as, being able to say to your readers, hey, we want to make sure that you understand, we want to be highly transparent with you, which actually serves to build up your credibility. So I think with the legal side, I'm not sure if it would be fun, but it's certainly, an effective way to use those things, because so many of your competitors try to use it in a negative light or try to minimize compliance. And if you're just upfront with it and, use that as a statement of your credibility, it can really be effective.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. Use that as part of your marketing. Don't hide from things like everyone else does. And I also like that suggestion there of, just go on Yelp, find a lawyer, make an appointment, and then tell that lawyer about your business and what you have going on, and see if there are any red flags there. So will any lawyer do? Should we just go on Yelp and search for any lawyer, or are there specific types of lawyers, or is there any concern where maybe some of them won't understand any of this internet stuff? Anything there?
It is a specialized field, despite the internet being around for about 20 years now as a commercial medium. So I would probably do a search first for internet business lawyer or internet lawyer, and run those through Yelp. Obviously, if you know people in other companies and they have counsel, you might talk to them. The internet laws are their own little unique area. Formerly they were just comprised of laws that we had previously before the internet, like copyright and trademark and those kinds of things. But now we have much more of a development that's designed to really to address things that are happening on the internet, whether it be things like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in the U.S. Or a vicious new privacy law that's being launched in the EU, which is called the General Data Protection Regulation, and goes into effect in May. There are all these different things that are now internet specific. So I would start there. And then the products that you're selling, it kind of depends on what you're selling. If you're just selling an online course, an internet lawyer is fine. If you're selling, some kind of medication or something of that sort, you may need to also talk to another attorney that's familiar with FDA guidelines or something of that sort.
Okay, so would it be helpful to have, like when we meet with this attorney, would it be helpful to have this sort of lists going in of, like you said, like if we sell supplements or if we do email marketing or we have a lot of customers in the EU, maybe take some of that inventory so that way we can go with the lawyer and say, well, here's a starting point, here's a few areas to think about?
Absolutely, because it's going to help them, get moving on it. Basically, they're going to look at your site or your app, and they're going to go through it and start, noting if there are any issues. And many times there are none. So, don't look at this as something that's going to be, a horrible experience. And yeah, what they're looking for basically are the big problems. Is there a big issue with something that you're doing? For example, if you're cold calling people, are you violating the telephone Consumer Protection Act, those kinds of things that could really get you into trouble. And once they mark that off, then you're probably going to need little things. And it's just a matter of creating a list of priorities. So the more information you can provide for them, the better. It's also going to go faster. But the more information you provide for them, the better they're going to be able to give you kind of a list of things that you need to be concerned about or not concerned about. And then again, it's just like, any other thing with your business that maybe you're not excited about, but you have to do. It's just a to-do list of priorities, and then you work through them, as you work through them.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really great. And I got to tell you, I'm really loving this plan of, go to the lawyer who is, in your area and is up to date on things, because sometimes, I'm sure you've got to have seen this too. Like sometimes I'll see on Facebook groups or I'll see blog posts or things, and it seems like some people are basically giving out legal advice, and they're talking about specific things and talking about specific actions to take. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they're giving out this really specific advice, but maybe they don't live in my country, or maybe they don't live in my state, or maybe this information was from 5 years ago and it's either out of date or there's something new that they haven't covered or something like that. And so yeah, I really like this idea of kind of avoiding that catch-22, because it really seems like whenever I go on the internet and I have the Facebook attorneys, I guess, they're not real attorneys, but they seem to play attorneys on Facebook. They have this advice. It seems like it scares me, but then I'm like, but then it also applies to some other areas, so it's sort of frustrating.
No, that's true. It's like the medical field. I think that, you see people get into forums, what have you, on a particular medical issue, something they've experienced, or maybe something in their family, and they start talking about it. And the issue with medicine, and probably also with the law, I would say, is that it really kind of depends on your specific facts. Like when we were talking about when you go in with a lawyer, well, if you have a dating site versus, let's say, a site selling, some kind of a natural treatment or something of that sort, those are two very different subjects, and they have very different laws that would apply to that. So it's important to make sure you talk to somebody who not only knows what the law is, but can look at your site and say, you're fine, or, we need to deal with this right now, so that you can have those issues. I'll give you an example of the GDPR right now, which is coming out in the EU, the big privacy regulation. There are all kinds of people talking about it online who are just wrong. They've either never read it, which is probably likely because it's long and just an ugly piece of regulation. But they're talking about things that they don't understand, and it's just not there. So, for instance, they're saying if you collect any data from anybody who's ever lived in the EU, you have to comply with this regulation. Excuse me. And that's just wrong. It's just patently wrong. Article 3, Section 2 says basically there's a test, as to whether you're offering goods and services to people in the EU, and you have to go through this compliance steps and all these different things. It's very complex. There's no easy answer to it, but just all these kind of simple things that you hear from people, as an attorney, you kind of roll your eyes and think, God, I hope people aren't relying on that. But that happens in a lot of industries. The beautiful thing about the web is it's the web. It's free exchange and communication, but unfortunately some aspects of it, you're always going to have the garbage in, garbage out kind of a scenario. So.
Yeah. Definitely. Like you have a non-attorney looking at some legalese, and then someone passes down secondhand information. Yeah, I could totally see how that sort of thing happens. And so are there things that maybe we could do ahead of time before meeting with this attorney? Like, for example, like I have legal pages on my websites, and I always hear about how important legal pages are, and it's like, well, I guess like I have them on there, but are there like easy things that we can maybe knock out and get on our website before meeting with the attorney, so that way at least the attorney could look at what we've created, or should we just go in with a blank slate?
As far as terms and privacy policy, attorney will just blow through that pretty quickly. I mean, they know what they need to see and, what needs to be there and what doesn't need to be there. I think the one area where you probably have to be a little careful is if you're pushing affiliate products. A lot of the affiliate programs are concerned because some of the court rulings, a few in the U.S., but quite a few in Europe, have started holding the parent program liable for what the affiliates do. And so they will require certain things that affiliates publish certain statements or take certain acts. So, for instance, Amazon requires that you publish a very specific statement on your site if you're part of their affiliate program and push their products. A lot of Amazon affiliates don't know that. It's not really an issue until something comes up. But if something comes up and you have a lot of money in your affiliate account with Amazon and they close your account, you are not getting that money back. So reading through, whatever the programs are that you're an affiliate of and making sure you comply with those is important. That's something an attorney's not going to know offhand. We all know about Amazon because they're so big, but some of the others we're not going to. And then looking at your site just kind of from a compliance perspective, from the idea again of credibility. If you're if you're being paid to post content on your site, if you're being paid for reviews, anything that you're receiving compensation from, and it's not just money. It's the products, anything of that sort. Are you making those disclosures? Same thing. You might also list your social media accounts before you go in, because those accounts, they count as well. If you do a video review of something and you receive that product for free or you're being paid for it, you have to disclose that in the video. And a lot of people don't. And the FTC enforcement actions can be up to $40,000 per violation. And if you have one violation, you probably have many. So it's something you want to stay on top of. And importantly, I'm not trying to scare people. The thing is just to prepare for and just to have an idea. So I think going in, looking at your affiliate, relationships, making sure you're good on that. And then your social media accounts would probably be the other thing that you would want. And if you're doing anything special and unique where you're, going out and doing direct mail or something like that typically we wouldn't see with an online business, you probably want to mention that.
Okay, yeah, this is really interesting. You're mentioning a lot of things that hadn't even crossed my mind. I hadn't even considered to think about or be careful about those sorts of things on the social media accounts. And even you mentioned the affiliate stuff. That works both ways, right? Like if we're an Amazon affiliate, then some things that we do might, if they're too shady, might get us shut down with Amazon. But if we have our own affiliates, something that some random affiliate does that's not okay might come back to bite us in the butt, right?
Correct. So if you run your own affiliate programs, one of the issues you're going to look at is email. Because the FTC and private lawsuits, they're not going to stop at the affiliate. So if your affiliate goes out and starts spamming everybody, you're going to hear about it, and you're going to need a lawyer, pretty quick. And maybe you can fight off, maybe you can't. It just kind of depends on the facts of the situation. But yeah, with affiliates, affiliates are great because they go generate business for you. But you do need to make sure that you have a very specific set of terms and conditions. That's going to detail what they can and can't do. So with Amazon, I think they don't even let you email Amazon affiliate URLs, and things of that sort. So you need to think through those processes and, what are we comfortable risking? What are we not comfortable risking? Does our insurance, do we have insurance? And does the insurance cover that kind of a thing? And it's all risk evaluation, to be honest with you. There's never going to be a perfect answer for a lot of this stuff. If you complied with every law to every, the detail of every law, your site would pop up and it would be 85 disclaimers. Nobody could actually see the site. It would just be a joke. So for instance, in the EU, when you go to many sites now that have any kind of relationship with the EU, you'll see a pop-up that talks about cookies. You agree to our cookies and blah, 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 blah. And that's just such a joke because nobody clicks that, nobody does anything with that. And the EU is actually right now rewriting that regulation. And to their credit, they've admitted, okay, this was useless. This didn't have the effect we wanted, and it just just basically clogs up the sites. So they're going to move to a different situation where they're going to make browsers actually set the privacy instead of site by site. And it's all going to be complicated and a mess, but it'll be a solution for them. But so that's kind of the idea, is just trying to go through your site, make sure how are your programs, how are we going to promote it, what are we comfortable with, what are we not comfortable with, make sure you have insurance in place. And then, just play it out and see how things go. And that's, it's always going to be there. There's always a little bit of risk, but that's why you get insurance and you get an attorney to try to evaluate that.
Okay, yeah, all this makes perfect sense that, we can only do our best, make sure that we have the bases covered as much as possible, and the ground is always shifting beneath our feet as, this country or that country or this agency, passes this or that. And so the best we can do is, just the best we can do. And then if we kind of have this once a year meeting with that attorney, they can, get us caught up on, different things as we kind of get a little better at this and as the world changes around us and stuff like that. And so, I mean, do you recommend that we just kind of go in there and kind of hash things out and see what comes up with the lawyer? Or is there like an easy checklist for us to go through to maybe come to the lawyer with some ideas or anything like that?
It's mostly going to be a hash out. I mean, you want your terms and conditions and your privacy policy checked. I mean, those are two important documents. I know there are a lot of free copies out there and generators and things of that sort, and using those is really a mistake unless you're just starting out and you have no traffic at all, and you're just getting going. The thing important to understand about those is terms and conditions are a contract. And so, as with any contract, you want to make sure that the language in there is something that's agreeable to you. And if you own a site or an app, you're in a unique position because you get to write the contract. so you want terms in there that are going to be favorable to you, that are going to limit, the potential lawsuits coming back against you. You're going to put things like a binding arbitration agreement, things of that sort. With the privacy policy, it's a form of a contract. I include it in my terms, so it's considered a contract. But the FTC will enforce those promises that you make. And so here's a common mistake that you see on practically all small websites is they'll get a form privacy policy from somewhere or quote unquote borrow one, and it'll contain a statement that says we do not sell, share, or rent your personal information. And it's a noble gesture because really what you're trying to say is we're not going to sell your email address off to everybody else and let them spam you. The problem is once it's time for you to sell your site, and you get an offer that you like and everything looks good, and the attorney for the buyer is going to say, well, what's the statement in your privacy policy that you're not going to sell, share, or rent the personal information? We're not buying this site without the client list or the email list. And you're going to say,
I'm screwed.
Yeah, and you are. And the courts have consistently held that if that statement is in there, you cannot sell that content. Plenty of Fish is a dating site, and they tried to purchase another site, dating site called True.com's client list. It was like, I don't know how many people, but the purchase price was $700,000, and the courts rejected it. And they did it for that very reason. So privacy policies and terms and conditions are not exciting to you, and you really don't want to be writing your own. You want, as you grow, once you start bringing in some decent money, you definitely want an attorney to look at your site and write custom versions of them that are applicable to the specific things that you do in your site. And that's, really important. Now, as an attorney, of course, I want to tell you that you should do that right from the get-go. But I realize when you're starting a site or an app online, funds are obviously an issue. But yeah, that's definitely money. You want to spend money as soon as you can.
Right. I mean, that makes total sense that using one of those like sort of one size fits all kind of things is good just to have something there just to get you by. But I mean, yeah, what a cautionary tale that you just laid out there as far as like, we always think that, well, if I don't have this legal stuff in place, then, I'm going to get sued or I'm going to lose a bunch of money or things like that. But I hadn't even considered that by not having or by having the incorrect legal things in place, then it'll actually prevent us from even making the big money.
Well, a lot of the mistakes are even small and odd things. So, for instance, in most terms and conditions, there's a statement called a choice of forum. It's a choice of forum selection or clause. And basically what it says is, it's going to designate the law, excuse me, the jurisdiction that you're going to use the law for and where the dispute's going to be heard. So, for instance, I'm in San Diego. On my side, I would include a choice of forum clause that says any dispute between you and I is going to be litigated in San Diego in the San Diego Superior Court. Okay. And so if you're in New York or something of that sort and you want to sue me, you would almost assuredly have to come to San Diego to actually do that. Now, that's a big deterrent, as you can imagine. But I get calls every year from people who have borrowed terms from another site or something, and they're in California and I'm in California, and they show me the lawsuit, and the lawsuit's in New York or it's in Florida, and I'm trying to figure out why. And then I look at their terms and conditions, and because they just copied them from some other site, or the terms have, any dispute will be in Florida or something of that sort. And so they end up, kind of running into that bizarre situation. It is what it is. I realize it happens, and I would discourage you to try to avoid that if at all possible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I had no idea. That's freaking crazy. So,
Yeah.
we're starting to wind down in our conversation here a little bit, and we talked about a lot of I don't know, on the surface, boring legal stuff, but with some of your kind of stories and kind of spin on some of these things, it's actually a little bit interesting. And so I'm curious about, you said that you've been a practicing attorney for how many years now?
Oh, let's see. So it's probably the late 1989. So however many years that is, we're definitely coming on 25.
Okay, so almost 30 years, and I'm sure that a lot of things have changed, and there definitely weren't internet lawyers in the late 80s. So did you come across any difficulties in making that transition from being just whatever kind of lawyer you were back then to an internet lawyer now?
I don't know. It was so difficult. I had kind of a strange transfer, if you will. I was actually doing litigation defending wrongful death cases in the 1990s. So my clients were accused of accidentally offing patients and things of that sort. We're talking about doctors and what have you. That was a little depressing. So 1999, I went to Russia actually for a year and taught over there, and took kind of a sabbatical, that kind of thing. I came back and decided to do something different. I had a friend who had become CEO of an internet company. And if you remember back, 1989 or 1999, 2000, everything was very, how shall we say, immature in the internet field. If you had an internet company, people just throw money at it, regardless of whether it was going to be profitable or not. So I got into it then, and there weren't very many laws. There was just basically the only question was, how do we even regulate all this? We still had the wild, wild west internet kind of mentality. So the transition wasn't difficult because there wasn't much to transition to. And then subsequently, you've seen all kinds of developments, which were interesting. Unfortunately, now we're sort of in a period where I call it the Empire Strikes Back. Countries are, issuing regulations and laws and things of that sort that are really doing serious damage to the internet. And the idea of a worldwide internet may become, antiquated here in the next 5 to 10 years as countries start dividing up the internet, and they make it difficult for you to appear in all different locations because you can't comply with the laws, which often conflict. And so you see right now Skype isn't available in China. China's obviously one of the more restrictive areas, but it's a huge market. Russia, you can't view LinkedIn, I don't think, to this day. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was for a while because LinkedIn just refused to comply with certain crazy Russian laws. And you're going to see these different groups, putting together different regulations and laws. They're just going to make it very hard to do business everywhere. So if I was somebody running an online business today or thinking about starting one, I'd give a lot of thought to my market. And where's my geographic market, which is something that most internet people don't think about. But it is going to become a bigger issue. You're not going to be, like the old battle days where it's a brick and mortar and you're restricted to a corner. But you are probably going to see restrictions to companies just from practical point of view. So if your market is, the EU, well, you need to know those laws, and you need to, quite frankly, probably speak with an EU attorney and sit down and go through them all because they're radically different than the U.S. laws. And so if your target market is the U.S. and you're pretty sure that's what it's always going to be, then you stick with the U.S. But you're also, there may come a point where you're even going to start geo-blocking other countries, just to avoid, the potential being dragged into, their regulatory nightmares.
Right. Yeah, a lot of scary stuff to think about. And so in your opinion, you definitely think that there'll be, more regulation in the future. But are you optimistic about this in the long term where things will end up? Because it seems like, with any kind of discussion about net neutrality or trying to figure out like an internet sales tax or Amazon and things like that, it seems like there's a lot of sky is falling kind of things. So, but do you think like maybe will things just kind of get worse and worse, or will there maybe be like a dark period and it'll be better in the long run? Like, do you think things are going to get harder or easier at some point?
Well, initially it's going to get much more difficult. But and not difficult is the wrong word. It's just going to get much more annoying, the things you're going to have to deal with. So you raise all the points that you just mentioned are not only relevant to right now, but they're all in movement right now. So, for instance, just yesterday, the Supreme Court of the United States announced they're going to issue a ruling on whether internet sales tax can be collected, across the country or not. The Amazon sales tax issue, that so many people have battled over for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So now they're going to issue a ruling, and that ruling is almost certainly going to be that states can collect sales tax online. Is that going to kill your business? No, it's a pass-through cost. Is it annoying? Yes, because you're going to have to, pay all these different taxes, but something that you deal with. And it's just, kind of one of those things where, you'll move forward and it'll be annoying as hell the next 2 years. And then after that, you'll just be part of doing business. The bigger problem that we see, though, is that, so for the EU, the difference between the EU and the US, for instance, is very simple. In the United States, there's no concept of privacy. Privacy in the U.S. is nothing less than just a complete and utter joke. And if you think that you have any privacy in the U.S., let me just tell you unequivocally, you do not. You just don't. The government, big companies, whoever can sweep up whatever information from you they have. And right now there are all kinds of behavioral profiles of you. And that's true whether it's the FBI, or it's a commercial group. They don't say that as some kind of conspiracy wacko. It's just what's out there. And it doesn't really matter. It's not necessarily a threat to you or anything of that sort. But that whole mentality is that, we can sweep up this information and we can either monetize it or we can use it for, criminal issues. In the EU, privacy is considered a human right. And so they have a completely different approach. Now, the irony is they also have incredible monitoring from the government. I mean, you walk through London, it's the most camera recorded city, in the world. But on the commercial side, they've gone in completely different directions. So with the new GDPR that's coming out in May, it's all going to be basically an opt-in situation. So you go to a website in the EU, let's say one of the newspaper sites, they cannot collect any information from you, not your IP, nothing, unless you first basically read a privacy disclosure that's going to pop up in which you see how they're going to be collecting information, who they're sharing it with, and then you start checking boxes, basically giving your permission for them to, to collect it for different purposes. And so that's obviously radically different from the U.S. where, you go to a site and a common business model is, to try to collect your email address, and it's basically you just have to enter your email address and that is it. So how do you comply with those two different situations? The answer right now is to try to, do programming on your site that's going to say, recognize these URL or recognize these IP addresses. If the IP address is not in the United States, then show this, EU compliant, checkbox system and all this kind of stuff. But a lot of sites, if you're small and you have 3% traffic from the EU and you don't have any sales from the EU, the better answer, to be quite honest, is just to geo-block all the, the IP addresses there or however you want to do it. So if somebody from the EU actually tries to access your site, says, "Oops, sorry, we don't take traffic from the EU. Here's the Disney page," or something of that sort. And then you've basically eliminated the risk. Now that sounds like it's completely ludicrous, but as countries issue more regulations, that's kind of where we're headed.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like when there's these laws get passed, I don't know, this is just my personal opinion, but it seems like when these laws get passed, they seem really out of touch. It seems like they're either these laws that get passed that really don't do much, or they're really overreaching, and then just by the fact that they try to do too much, no one really takes it seriously. But yeah, like you explaining some of that really puts it in perspective as far as like, things for us to think about, watch when we're moving forward, and so there are two parts of what you just said there. There's like those big changes, and like those are going to happen. But then what I like about your attitude is that there's always going to be some kind of crisis. But as you said, it's just an annoyance, right? It's not like we're going to have to throw out our whole entire businesses or whole entire websites, just little annoyances to get through. So that, at least for me, that's really reassuring. And so I want to make sure. Oh, anything else?
No, I think that's it. I think you're absolutely right. Particularly on the web, there's a sense of, if something's coming along, it's, panic city. And in some cases that's justified, but in others, it is just kind of a development and a cost of doing business. I'm in California. If you have a brick and mortar business in California, not an internet business, the number of hoops and stupid regulations you have to comply with, are just, it's staggering. And we just haven't seen that online. That's the beauty of the internet. We've kind of gone through a period of, naivety where, to start a business on the online, you literally slap up a website template and off you go. And that's wonderful. Unfortunately, I think that's going to get crimped a little bit, but not anywhere near where it's going to ruin the web or anything of that sort.
Well, cool. Well, just an annoyance then. So I want to make sure that we hear about whatever kinds of resources, links, URLs you have for us. So if people heard our conversation today and maybe their curiosity is piqued a little bit and they want to hear about you and your businesses and what you have going on, what sorts of places should they go check out right now?
Sure. You can always find me at my law firm website. It's SoCal, like Southern California, SoCalInternetLawyer.com. If you can't find it for some reason, you can look for me on LinkedIn for Richard Chapo, or just do, a search engine search. I also have to mention there's a Mexican drug lord who has a nickname Chapo. So if you see all the FBI links and things of that sort, that's not me. But just look for, Richard Chapo, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. So no relation to El Chapo. We're looking for a Richard Chapo.
No, I've tried dropping the names a couple times in Tijuana to get free drinks, and that didn't work out well. So, but other than that,
it's got some extra baggage. Well, great. So once again, the place is SoCalInternetLawyer.com. And also go check out Richard Chapo on LinkedIn. Add him as a friend or a connection or whatever the terminology that they use. SoCalInternetLawyer.com. And thanks so much, Richard, for stopping by and dispensing some of this great advice and easy instructions for us to follow, just to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and don't have some huge surprise or disaster on our hands. So appreciate it and appreciate you.
Great. Thank you for having me on.
Go right now to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes to subscribe to the show, listen to other episodes, and rate and review the show.